What's going on, y'all? Welcome to the Songwriter Speak presented by APRA AMCOS, Brisbane edition. My name is Chong Ali. I'm going to be your panel moderator. And to my right, we have some amazing guests. Arig, the one, and
Hello.
Jaguar Jonze. Make some noise, y'all. Yeah, it's so natural. What's going on? What's going on? Arig, the one.
Yes.
You are in the midst of a rebrand.
Oof.
We're gonna get
My
straight. We're
lord.
gonna get stuck into it. I don't know
am.
if you saw my cards
Your
matching
cue cards, yes.
the curtains, but
Soles
so
of your shoes.
and my shoes as well. Thank you, Jaguar
And your
Jonze.
pants. Yeah.
So we had a bit of I guess a pre-show chat, and
Yeah.
you were talking about running into some barriers with keeping the people around you in the environment that you were in that wasn't conducive to your creative output.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you could talk to us a little bit more about, the steps that you've taken to enable, or encourage more creative work from you.
Oh yeah. I'm just putting together a whole different team now.
Yep.
So as we were saying, like the EP is still on its way, but I'm no longer working with the people that I was working with before, from like photographers to like producers to graphic designers. I'm not working with any of the same people anymore. And I think coming out of COVID, I really had to consider like who I am, and it's like what I'm trying to do and at the pace that I'm trying to do it at. I also know from experience that the way that you conduct yourself is the way that other people will treat you as well.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's one of those things for me right now where it's like I feel like if somebody isn't willing to show up and meet me where I'm at, they get cut off at the head.
Yeah.
It's like I don't have time for that nonsense anymore.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't have time for that nonsense anymore. I'm trying to make a change. I'm trying to like use my music as a medium for a particular message, and I don't have time to fluff about. And that's also why I'm doing the whole rebranding as well. I think I'm honestly just like growing and maturing as an artist and as a person. Because I don't think that you can grow and mature as an artist if you haven't been growing and maturing as like a person, a soul, and a spirit, and been learning lessons. Yeah.
So
Rebrand.
so
I totally get that though. Like I think my biggest lesson this year was boundaries and how accessible I made myself to everyone. And this year, just going through my quarantines and whatnot and having COVID and whatnot, I realized that I was just giving so much of myself away and making myself so tolerant and flexible that I sacrificed the number one person I should be taking care of, which is me, which then affects my artistry as well. So maybe I'm not that great at nipping it in the bud like you are, like cutting them at the heads, but that's where I want to be.
No, can I just say
Yeah.
something? The only reason why I have gotten to this point now is because I would deplete myself.
Yeah.
I would just completely and utterly deplete myself, hoping that people could and would show up, to the point where even my intimate relationships, I was just giving and giving and giving and giving and giving and not receiving anything back, and finding myself in relationships with people who were out to just take and take and take and take and take.
Well, yeah, and it's also like, yeah, we fall into those situations, but we have to be the ones to protect ourselves from those situations. And I'm the same. I'm a giver. And then when I ask for a little bit of something, they're like, wait, no, that wasn't the relationship we had. And I'm like, but I'm just asking a little thing. Like, you have to be the one from the beginning being like, we're equal. You give and take, and I give and take. And this is what, the boundaries are. If you break those boundaries, I will readjust my time and space that I give you in the relationship. Anyway, that went real heavy. First question.
No,
So
that's
deep.
Straight up
good.
from the
No,
bat.
that's great.
do you see
The
how I
boundaries
do
are
this
so
now? See
good.
how I roll? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, we get right into it. Look, from what I hear and what I'm getting is like you're creating this environment like that's gonna be like obviously surrounding yourself with the right people that's gonna enable you to be the best artist that you could be, right? Like I mean, we all know Jaguar Jonze just went through, you know, like some terrible COVID-related stuff, and you were in quarantine, but you still managed to create things. Even though it wasn't really songwriting related, it still kind of
I actually wrote a whole EP.
Oh, did
while
you?
I was,
Oh,
while I
wow,
was
okay.
under hospital care, and I finished my first EP while under hospital care.
Wow.
So like
that's amazing.
at the time when I recorded my vocals, I was like, this sounds like asshole. Because, you know, I had COVID, I really couldn't sing. But then when I stepped away and took some space, I was like, this actually captures the uncertainty, my emotions, my anxiety, like the pressure cooker of an environment that I was in, that I ended up keeping the vocal takes I took in hospital. So yeah, no, it was actually a very creative
That's
time
amazing.
for me. I just probably wasn't as like showing it to everyone, but
Yeah.
in my own little world, art and music was my saving grace in what was like a really bleak time for me. So yeah, I was super
Wow.
creative. Yeah.
That's amazing. Because I saw the artwork that you were doing, like the visual arts that you were doing. I had no idea that you were.
I just want to say real quick, it's bomb. It is
Yeah,
awesome.
100%.
Yeah.
So, how much of an impact did obviously being in the hospital inform your writing?
Well, I felt like, because I felt like I had worked so hard to get to a place with my music, and then this year I had plans and COVID happened, and I was like, damn it, you know, like you took this away from me. Like I've invested financially, emotionally, physically, my time to get to this place, and then COVID happened, and it was like just became volatile and unpredictable. But so initially I felt like I was going to fall behind dramatically because I was in hospital for 40 days, and then on top of that I had quarantine, and everyone was doing the whole live stream thing, you know, doing their music stuff, but in the live stream world online, I couldn't do any of that because I couldn't pick up a guitar. I literally couldn't sing. So it pushed me into this little box that allowed me to be creative in a different way. So I ended up doing like Jaguar Jonze coloring books for everyone to enjoy because that's what I could do at the time. And it actually was awesome. Like so many people participated. It was like a weekly thing for 6 weeks. We'd just do a different coloring book edition each week, and then there was a competition for it and a live stream for it. And sometimes I'll be in a fever with a blanket under hospital care, and I'll be like, hello guys, this is week 3. But it was so much fun, and I actually felt like in what was a very isolating time, because I was in solitary confinement, I had hundreds of people around me, you know, like in a very different way and doing really different creative stuff. So it was actually really productive. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing that you've actually found an outlet even in, you know, in such a challenging environment, you know, and being able to, you know, utilize different aspects of your artistry. What about Arig? What about you? We spoke before, and we spoke about you
Dear Lord.
freestyling a lot of your stuff, you know, either in your home studio or in the studio. Like, what do you find brings out the most creativity for you in your environment?
It's like, as a writer, someone who, like, I kind of explore melodies and lyrics. It can come like that. Like, I could be driving, I could be going for a walk. I was literally brushing my teeth last night, and you, like, as somebody, like, if you have the ability and the gift to do that, like, you kind of have to honor it and capture it when it comes. One of the songs on this EP that I'm wrapping up, I literally heard the beat one night and couldn't sleep and was like a bit restless and woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and the producer had, like, you know, like, I had been going through some of the beats that she sent me through a link, and I just downloaded one of the versions and I just uploaded it onto, you know, whatever, and 6 a.m. in the morning, and I just went for it. Because I just couldn't sleep, and the whole song just came out. Like, it just came out.
So that's so you're demoing it in your home studio?
Yeah.
How do your neighbors go
I don't give
when
a
you're
That's their no, I'm not gonna lie to you. When I was younger, I feel like I had a really like defeatist mentality because I was always very scared to like express who I really was. Growing up, growing up in an extremely religious household, my family are Muslim, and I'm from a very small part of the world called Eritrea, and they have the, I like to call it the village mentality. And one of the big sayings back home is Kab Aini Seb, and that means you have to hide from the eyes of people. So it's pretty much like, conceal yourself, don't stand out, don't make too much noise, don't be seen, don't do just shush. So growing up, like I was always super creative. Like you would always, I was the only child for like 9 years as well. So you'd always find me in my room, like writing and just writing, and you know, home life was extremely tumultuous. So I found escapism in writing from the terrible things that were happening outside of my bedroom door. Wait, what was the question?
No, I'm exactly the same though.
Oh yeah,
Like,
the
like-
making the noise.
Oh yeah.
Making the noise. So I had to fight that. I had to fight going, no, I need to sing. I need to make sure that I can like get this out of my system. I need to get this correct. I need to practice, but I don't want my neighbors to see me be vulnerable or hear me being vulnerable or hear me making mistakes. But now I've gotten to the point where again, it's like my music is a medium for me to be able to spread a message. And if that means that my neighbors have to deal with me making some noise, they can deal with it.
That's
Whatever.
great. I'm exactly the same though, like, but I was like, I didn't know I was creative. It was completely repressed. But now that I look back at my childhood, I was definitely very creative. It was just shut down straight away. Like I wasn't really allowed to listen to music growing up. And if I ever did drawings and whatnot, it was burnt and thrown out. So like in my head, I always thought I wasn't allowed to create. And so it wasn't like a freely done activity. I went fully like maths and science way. I studied engineering. I did business marketing. I became a business analyst. I literally thought that was where I was at until I realized the trauma caught up with me. Yeah. And when the trauma catches up with you, like it was just
Catches
one
up.
little event that like was the tipping point. I lost my best friend and I ended up like walking home past a garage sale, bought a guitar, and instead of learning how to play guitar, I started writing songs, and it just came pouring out of me. They're shit songs, but you know, like it came pouring out of me anyway, and it was just like I felt so good, and I realized that I had finally found passion for the first time. But again, it was still like this long process of getting over shame, because there's a huge amount of shame in putting yourself out there,
Yep.
putting your own opinions out there, drawing attention to yourself, making a scene, breaking out of the collective
Yep.
and being an individual. Like that's a huge no-no. So everyone's always like, oh, you know, Jaguar Jonze is a 2-year project, and like you were so different before that. It was because I was Dina in a shell, directed by culture and society on how to behave and what to do. And Jaguar Jonze was like this medium for me to break out of it. And slowly I've just been gaining this confidence. And that shows in my songwriting too, because before you look at the lyrics of my old songs, everything's in like Morse code and hidden by like layers of like crocodile gator moats, whatever you
The
call it, and like infrared laser beams and then like concrete walls. And I'm like, what is she trying to say here? While slowly I've been like breaking down those barriers, and I'm less afraid of being vulnerable as a songwriter, which I think directly translates to writing better songs, because you're not holding yourself back anymore and you're not letting others hold you back. Just kind of taking confidence in that.
Can I just roll off what you have
I just
to
rolled
say?
off you.
Yeah, girl. I think with my first EP, I would remember going home. Not home to my family. I left when I was young. I was like, I can't deal with y'all anymore. I got to get out of here. I'm losing my goddamn mind in this space. But I was living with a really good friend of mine, and I would come home and I'd be like, oh, this is what I did today in the studio, and like search for the approval I would seek the approval in other people, which is so wrong. Now with well, it's not wrong, it was just the journey, it was just the path that I was on. Now with this EP and all the other stuff that I'm writing, and even the like the whole rebranding the material and all the rest of it, the only person that I'm seeking approval from is me. I'm like, is this a clear representation of what I want to do and what I want to say? Because if someone else can come along and say something like, I don't like that word, I don't like that phrasing, I don't like your cadence, there's a big difference between somebody that you trust musically or has a really good eye for aesthetics saying, hey, Arig, consider maybe A, B, and C, and you can go back, consider it. You know, maybe you did miss a little detail, and then you can implement what they say or their advice. But there's a big difference between doing that and just being like, I need to seek approval. So you're constantly just changing who you are and what it is that you truly want to do. If you can be shook easy, you need to reconsider yourself. And you need to reconsider the identity that you have with yourself. And that's what's been happening with me this year. But I think it started with Liars and Frauds, to be honest, back in February. I think
it's a slow process too. Like, we're kind of getting to the other end of it, so it's easy to talk about, but it's a hard process to break out of like the shame and having to meet the expectations of others. It's so hard to break out of that, and then to, once you're out of that, be lost in this crazy realm of finding yourself as an artist. It's like a deep black hole, and it's an ongoing search. So like, I think it takes time. We say it now and we like kind of like capture it in a few minutes, but like for me, it's taken years and years and years. And even now sitting here, I'm like, I still do seek approval. I still do feel shame. I still do hold myself back and let others hold me back sometimes. But I have the awareness now, and I'm actively working on it.
I was going to say, but now it's like a thing of being able to kind of catch yourself, being like, oh, there it is. Hold on a second. Let's take a step back, reassess, and remember who we are, what we're trying to achieve. And like to be honest, I don't know how this turned into a therapy session, but it did.
Right?
It's these couches.
Yeah.
Like
it's the tea, it's the couches.
Growing up the way that I grew up, and a lot of other people have gone through things that were worse than what I've been subjected to and what I've experienced. But for me, that's my story. I'm not a victim. I will never be a victim. I don't believe in being a victim. But unfortunately, screw it. Fortunately, I was subjected to some brutal childhood abuse. So I was beaten severely as a kid, and I watched my mum get severely. She was physically, emotionally, spiritually, and financially abused by her partner as well. So it was kind of just like trickling down, and then she just kind of took it out on me. Growing up in an environment like that, you break a child's psyche. You break their sense of identity. You break their spirit and their soul. So that shame is something that I'm going to carry with me forever. But now what I've decided to do is own it. Because if I own my story, I'm instantly empowered. I will never be a victim, but I am the subject of that. But at the same time, my history, I will not allow my history to dictate who I am, what I can achieve, who I can be, and where I'm going to go. But that is a conscious choice that we have to make, because that shame is something that people, like, you carry it.
Yeah.
But you have to learn to be an alchemist and like infuse it in your everyday life and understand who you are and become emotionally intelligent, or just study yourself so you can be that alchemist and turn it into a power instead of a weakness.
But it's so hard. Like, you could go two ways. I relate heavily, and I talk openly about the fact that I have complex PTSD since I was a child, because I've been through similar things. Yeah. But you can go two ways about it, and I definitely went the other way when I was like a teenager. I lost it, lost my way a bit to get to the point that I'm here. It's like, bring it into your stride and make it part of who you are, or let it beat you down and throw you to the curb, you know? And I do struggle with that a lot, but I think the real hard part when you go through something like that as a child is you are trained to believe that you don't have human rights, which is why we've had a huge struggle with boundaries for so long, is because since you're a child, you're in a complete different environment where none of that exists for you. So you're told that's what you're worth, that's what you deserve, this is what you get. And that comes through with us into adulthood.
And it's heavily ingrained.
Heavily ingrained. I still struggle with it. Takes a lot of work to change it. And I just can't believe like how different I am compared to who I was like a few years ago, and how that affects my artistry as well. Because I let people do things to me because I thought it was normal and I thought it was okay. And then I also allowed myself to accept lower standards and not strive for who I wanted to be, what my passions were, what my artistry, like what I wanted to do, because I didn't have self-worth. Not because I was, you know, an insecure, self-conscious person, but because that's the environment I grew up in when you come from an abusive environment. Anyway, I don't know how they got two of us on board in the one couch. We were in it, like, sorry, but
like, let's talk about
like
CPTSD.
That's why we became artists, because it is a huge healing power. Maybe I would have been happy being a business analyst for the rest of my life, but that trauma that I was talking about was so overwhelming that it goes into my songs, it goes into my art, and it keeps me sane, keeps me like maintaining like perspective, and to make sure that like the overwhelming amount of emotions and trauma and difficulty is also in another place and can be shared in another place, and that's through a vehicle of 3 minutes in a song, rather than it's all just staying in here.
And your solar plexus just like heats up and you're like, woo, child.
I agree with you know, the healing aspect of art and music, especially just through, you know, my own personal experience creating art, but also receiving art. And you know, when you're a child, and you know, I never really created art. I just received art, and I was like, this is like, I felt like healed, like healing through art. And now we have the opportunity to, you know, share our art with other people, hoping that, you know, we could do the same thing. Do you find that, you know, we spoke about how creating it as an artist helps us heal as people. Do you find that, you know, as say Dina, and then you sort of move on to Jaguar Jonze, do you write from the perspective of Dina, or do you write from a voice of Jaguar Jonze?
I think Jaguar Jonze was, Jaguar Jonze is a part of me. And at the time it was like I had to break it off from me so that I had like this perfect medium and excuse, like, oh no, that's just the invulnerable side of Dina. But it's a character, you know what I mean? But it actually is a huge part of me. If anything, Jaguar Jonze is where I want to be 100% of the time. But when I was beginning, it was just so hard to do that. So it's like, oh no, but that's Jaguar. No, that's separate. Dina here is different. I'm meeting your expectations and I'm following the rules of society and culture. Don't worry, I'm still a business analyst and I've got a stable, secure job, you know. And it was kind of, it was like needed for me to like give myself the permission to actually allow myself to be the person I am and the artist that I am, and to explore without fear what I want to explore, you know, and say what I want to say and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think that's what more and more in the last 2 years, it's very hard to differentiate those two peoples, you know, and eventually I just hope that fearless bitch Jaguar Jonze over here is just me every single day. Yeah.
What about you, Arig? Or when you're writing, like how personal, how much of yourself do you give to your music? Do you feel like you have an obligation to have a message in your music, or can you sometimes just vibe out and just let the music be the music for what it is?
I feel like songs are like a representation of a particular experience that you have had. And as a human being, like, we're multifaceted. Like, there's not just one side of me. There's not just like emotional Arig who's heartbroken, or, you know, ghetto Arig who wants to like burn your house down. Like, there's so many different aspects of me that want to be, that need kind to come out. So yeah, every song is just capturing a specific event, emotion, a dream, an idea, and that can be whatever it is. Yeah. But it's so funny that only like a few of the many hundred ideas and experiences make it through to fruition, to like the end of a song, to like full production. But in terms of having a message, our story, our motivation, our why, who we are, I feel like we could make a song that's like super empowering, and a song that's like, hey yo, you want to come over and get these goods tonight? Like, either one, it depends who you are as an artist. Like, as long as your backbone is always straight, or even if your backbone isn't straight and you have the willpower to say, look, I'm not 100 today, but as long as you know who you are, your motivation and your why, the message is always going to carry through no matter what sort of song that you make.
I agree. I
If
think
that
it's
makes
like
sense.
just be genuine, you know, and
Yeah.
just be yourself, because that will come through. Like, my rule for songwriting is to not have rules.
Yeah.
And for me, it's just like, let my subconscious take the driver's seat and see what's on its mind, you know? Like, sometimes I just go like, I always have this rule where it's like, don't like prescribe the words. Like, it's just like, let it happen.
Yeah.
And even if at the time you're just like, oh, this is soft, I just let it happen. I can go back to it and like, you know, chisel at the marble later. But I always just let it flow and let my subconscious just like stream itself. And then I look back on it and I'm like, oh, you angry about something,
Yeah.
Dina? What are you feeling? Like, you know, and it's kind of like a therapy session with myself, because I'm like, I didn't know you were upset about that.
Sorry, I say the same thing too about writing. Like, even I'm a big fan of diary writing and journaling, and songwriting is just another way to kind of prescribe yourself the freedom to be able to divulge certain information with yourself that you wouldn't usually see just by having a conversation in your mind. Yeah. And again, whether the songs come to fruition or not, it doesn't matter, as long as you can just get it out. Yeah. And there have been moments where I've looked back and I'm like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, sometimes I like read the words back, I'm like, rip that piece of paper up.
Yeah. Don't let anybody
but
see this.
But it leads
ever.
to something else anyway, because you like let that door open and this anger comes out, and then that anger will be processed into something else, you know, and you've thought about whatever you're feeling more, which could lead to an actual good song as well. So I have another rule, which is like, always finish its song and give it the merit of it existing as a song. Yeah. But it doesn't need to be anything. It doesn't need to be a banger. It doesn't need to be great. You don't have to ever listen to it again. But I always try it, like, if I think 100% of the time these days, finish the song, let it exist on its own merit, and you actually don't know if it has led you to your best song, you know, that you might write next. So.
And do you set aside time? You know, do you schedule time to sit down and write, or do you just try to capture that moment when
I do. Because I know you mentioned before, like, you capture it and stuff. For me, I think I've had to exercise that freedom, or like exercise, that freedom of my mind to create. And that really helped by scheduling, but having no expectations when you go and sit down in that schedule to create anything. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I
get it.
Yeah, I always set aside time. I'm like, today you're going to try and write, but you don't have to create something. Just spend the time to switch off, because you saw me, I struggle to switch off, and just like sit in your thoughts and create for a little bit. And if nothing comes of it that day, that's fine. But for me, it's like exercising. Yeah. And I have to implement the exercise schedule.
Mine's more like I will be doing something and it'll just be like bang, 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 bang. And I'm like, not now. And it'll be like bang, bang, bang. And I'm like, fine. And I'll like grab my phone, record it, grab my pen and paper, write it down. And then I'll be like, now that I have you, I will deal with you later. And then I find a time to,
Yeah.
but it'll literally, like, sometimes it is the most frustrating thing, and it will come at the most inconvenient of times. Like, I've been at work and my manager's talking to me. I'm like, I have to go. Like, seriously,
You just
I'm
said
like,
something that sparked something in
No,
me.
but yeah, I do that too, though.
literally, I'm like,
yeah.
I gotta do something. But yeah, setting a time. I feel like being an artist, there's the aspect. One, you have to have English perspective. Your perspective is what the content of your art is made up of. The way that you perceive situations, the way that you perceive your emotions, the way that you perceive society as a whole is like the perspective. It's if you don't have an interesting perspective, then you're kind of bland and boring. Not to say that you're invalid, but artists but like artists why we love them is because of their perspective and the way that they kind of introduce their perspective to us. But discipline. So the scheduling the times is the discipline aspect of it.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
like, it comes to me in a moment and you'll be talking to me and I'll be like, I need to write this random lyric down, and I do that. But for me, because I know who I am now as an artist, and because we touched on it with, like, the abuse and the trauma a little bit, dissociating and repression and just, like, kind of dismissing myself is, like second nature for me. Like, it happens all the time. So that I had to discipline myself to allow myself to just freely explore my subconscious, and so I had to schedule that in. I had to open that kind of like channel between left brain Dina and right brain Dina, or like everyday Dina in a robot mode versus the true vulnerable Dina. I had to really discipline and create that like bridge between those two different worlds so that they can just kind of like come and go as they please, but I really had to like implement that. Otherwise, I easily can just dissociate and be like, I'm not feeling creative at all. I just need to go through life, you know? So like, that's me as a person. But that said, I still get those moments where I'm driving and I'll pick up my voice memo and it'll be like, nah, 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 nah. You know, and then later on I listen to it and I'm like, yeah, or like,
Delete.
Yeah.
What other tools do you guys use when you're like if you're grabbing ideas, just when they do come, or if you're sitting down? Like, are you pen and pad, or do you punch it on the phone or the laptop? Do you have instruments? What's your preferred method to writing songs and fleshing out these ideas?
I am an avid off the top of the head sort of person. If I am writing for myself, or if I jump in the studio with a producer, I will just make sure that my intuition takes the reins. I trust my intuition more than I trust myself when it comes to songwriting. So if I'm working with a producer, they play me a beat or sometimes a couple of chords. I'll be like, great, those chords are mathematically correct.
I don't know any of that shit.
Yes, yeah,
I'm like, those chords are like, they're correct, they loop, they feed back into themselves. Just give me an 8-bar loop. And I will just like whatever, I'll just get on the mic, and then whatever comes out, comes out. Sometimes it's a bit hit and miss, but it's just, I feel like if I do it that way, it's source. Like it's the realness, it's the nitty gritty. It's like, it is what it's meant to be. And sometimes it will be melodically perfect. The cadence will be perfect. Like everything about it will be just clean and perfect, and other times I have to take it, chip away at the marble, get it right, like get everything really, in between the lines, and get everything right, and then come back and do it again. But I do prefer to freestyle just about everything I do, unless I'm having writing sessions with myself where I'm just sitting on my bed, and I'm just like da-da-da-da-da, or like sitting there with my handheld at home, just creating for the sake of creating. But even then, it's still off the top of the head. Yeah. Because I find, like, it's source, it's value, and then I can figure out what I'm trying to say, how I'm trying to feel, and all the rest of it, and come back to it.
What about you, Dina? When you're in, do you
Um,
prefer to be at home in your environment? Do you
Oh,
write on
I'm
tour, or do you go in the studio? And
I'm everywhere and anywhere,
what
but
do you
like
do? You always take your guitar with you?
yeah,
or
I'm usually guitar. I normally write with a guitar, but I also can just do voice memo and just sing into it off the top of my head or like come up with a melody. Um, if we're talking technically, I just have a quite simple setup with like Logic, and then an interface. I plug my guitar in, plug a microphone in, and just kind of like record and maybe move things around and chip away at it. Um, I also really do love collaborating as well. So I actually do a lot of co-writes, and that was something I would have never done a few years ago. I hated it because technically I'm not trained at all. I don't know chords, I don't know scales. I am terrible as a technical musician.
I'm right there with you.
Oh, I'm so, even when you said mathematical, I was like, I don't even know.
No, I mean like when it's yeah.
But like I'm not, because like my band sometimes is like, you just went from 10/8 to 4/4, and I'm just like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Follow along,
Yeah.
people. Follow along. Follow along.
I'm just like, shh, just
so
play.
you do know what I'm doing.
So like I do love co-writing now because I realize that it pushes me outside of my comfort zones and allows me to explore in different ways. It might sometimes be that like, so say I'm writing with my bassist Aiden, he'll kind of look after the chords and I get to just really focus in on lyrics and melody. I really actually do enjoy that. Yeah, that's my writing process. But if it's me by myself, it's usually always with a guitar. And sometimes it might be that I've written a poem first, and so maybe I kind of loosely have constructed lyrics first. Sometimes it might just be that I've come up with some chords first, and I really like the sound of where that's going, and I might play with that. Or sometimes it's literally hand in hand at the same exact time. For me, there's just like no set ways at all.
I feel like you can't stifle the creativity. Like not having set ways, like you can't stifle it. Like if it comes, and then you kind of have to honor it. Like there have been moments, like I don't even know, like with Freedom, the song that I just released, it was Max was just on the guitar and he was just like playing this thing, and I was like, that's really beautiful. Can you send it to me and I'll just play with it. And I was just having a hard time with life at the time. And then I was just like, I do it all for freedom. I lose my life for freedom. Da, 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 da. I didn't have anything. So the first initial recording was ba-da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da-da, da-da, da-da-da-da, da-da-da. And then later on, I was in the shower. I think I was having a cry. And I was like, I do it all.
No one knows because the shower's washing
That's
it
a
all
Drake
away.
song,
It's
isn't it?
okay.
Huh?
That's a Drake song, isn't it? If he's crying in the shower.
No, I was crying in the shower.
Move over,
You
Drake.
know, Drake, I've been crying in the shower since I came out the womb. My Lord, life is heavy sometimes, but you can't stifle it. Like you just kind of have to honor it. And sometimes there are segments. It comes in segments. Like first it was just melody, da 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 da, and then you can come like after that come the words. But I feel like a really good song is like one big metaphor, where you can kind of the listener can apply it to any place in their life. Like for me, Freedom was my song to be like, I am so done with the fact that like, why am I boundaryless? Like I'm just done. Like I want freedom from myself. I want freedom from my past. I want freedom from whatever the hell is going on in my head. But someone else could be, it could be a completely different situation for them. But the fact that it's one of my favorite songs, so much so that the verse is the exact same for the second verse. Like, because even with the blindfolds on and the shackles on real, real tight, it's like just metaphor. So anyone can apply it into their life. And I think that like some of the greatest songs in the world are just like these amazing metaphors, amazing melodies, like just the way that it's being sung as well, because the emotion makes up the song. You could have a great metaphor and a great melody, but if the singer is like, well, I don't really want to show up today, no one cares. It's that you could take the most emotionless person in the world, press play on a song that just makes you want to like
For
go
me, I
for
reckon
it.
it's conviction, because like some of my favorite songs could be talking about an apple sitting on a table. It's not really a great metaphor, but I'm like, yes, that apple on the table. Like, yeah, feel you, apple. You know, but it's conviction. Like, so I would like to say, like, I think we should just write and not have expectations, not put pressures on yourself to create something that ticks boxes. Just like, I think the hardest part to finding yourself as a songwriter is giving yourself the freedom to just flow, like to just let it come out, and we can always go back to it and chip away at it if you need to, but in the moment, just don't go in there and be like, today I'm going to write a 3-minute and 30-second song about a banger regarding my love life with this particular person on these particular set of emotions that I feel on this date. It's like, nah, just go in there and go, and we can finesse it later. Sometimes I've written my best songs and it probably was rubbish, and then I've rewritten the chorus, but the melody was great. But on another day, another Dina was able to write a better chorus lyrically. So I think it's like, sometimes it can be like a work of art on the spot. Sometimes it can be a slow chisel out process. Some people's probably just good at like banger after banger all the time. But for me, I feel like it's like, don't feel like you don't have the gift, or that you can't do it like on a whim, because it's a laborious process too.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. You have to trust, you have to get to the point where you trust your own process. Writing songs is like, it's a process of trust. It's like going for a haircut. Halfway through the haircut, sometimes you're like, this is whack. Why am I here? But then, you know, like, you get the blowout, you get the straighten, you get a little bit of serum in there, you know, and you shine it up, and all of a sudden you're like, yeah, this is the shit. My mic is like over here. But you just have to like trust your process, whether that means it takes you 10 minutes to write a song, 10 days to write a song. It just trust the process, and trust that if the song is meant to come to fruition, it will.
Sometimes I think it's like, you might not even get to a verse or get to a chorus. I've got a note thing on my phone. I'm very much a pen and paper person, but when I'm walking through life, I've got a note on my phone, and it's called Lyrical Junkyard. And I just have written one-liners in there,
that.
or two-liners or something.
I love that.
Yeah, and maybe at the time Dina can't come up with more than a one-liner, but it goes into this lyrical junkyard. And then when I'm like needing inspiration of like emotions I had felt, I go in there, I'm like, that one-liner and these other 21 liners together make up like this perfect song. But that has been over a lot of time, and to give yourself that time.
I have a Google Drive folder of tracks called Random Lost Soldiers.
That's great. Damn it.
It's like Random Lost Soldiers, because I love them, but they're not gonna, like, you know, who knows, maybe in like a couple of years I'll be like, oh, let me revisit that thing, and there's like one song in there that's literally just like one line over and over and over again, but I'm just like, something's not quite right, but I trust it, I love it, you're there, you're my creation, you're my baby, but you're a random lost soldier. You know, and in my notes too, I've just got like just trash. Like, it's just
Jaguar Jonze started literally because I had a folder called Leftover Jones, and I thought I was gonna do like this like country acoustic album of Leftover Jones songs. That's like, I'm so sad and lonely, and then I just kept working on these songs, and it turned into the Jaguar Jonze type, and I was like, these aren't solo acoustic country songs at all.
Yeah.
But that's why I like to finish songs and give it the merit of them existing on its own in whatever version they are, even if it's like a 1-minute song. Because one day you might be able to find something amazing for it, but you just don't know. It's just like, just create and keep creating.
I'm not gonna lie. I've been writing like this album of the most saddest ballads, acoustic ballads, like so sad, even when I listen to it, I'm like, damn, like, are you okay?
I feel you.
But I know for a fact it's like those songs will make their way to the light in a couple of years' time. And I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
But they're finished, they're there, I love them. Like, eventually they will make their way into the light, because I still have to trust my artist. I have to trust my artist. My artist knows that right now the Reckless EP needs to come out first. And then after that, who knows, something might come out first. Or maybe it'll be time for those ballads to be birthed. But I'm just trusting the artist in me. It's a game of trust.
Yeah, I feel like I've got like an incubation center.
Yeah.
You know, like, and it's like I've got all these fertilized eggs ready. And I'm waiting for when I'm allowed to do an orchestra album.
Oh my God.
And then I can drop those heavy ballads and be like, you never saw this coming. You know, and everyone's like, oh, she can do whatever she wants. She can do an orchestra album if she wants. That's what I'm waiting for. And I'm going to drop these heavy, sad, fertilized egg babies.
I really want to do a country album.
Wow, I'm not going to lie.
I love, like, when I'm cruising around by myself, I don't even know what it is.
No, I do too.
I listen to the country station and I'm just like, yes, and I'm really good at writing. I can do the twang. I'm like, what is going on here?
Have you guys not heard the guitar lines in my songs? They are straight up Western cowboy.
Yeah.
No one knows this because I look Asian, but my dad's like Caucasian. He's a cowboy and I grew up going to rodeos.
Did you?
Yeah, this is the side of me that people do not see because I'm wearing a colored skin, you know? But I grew up wearing Wranglers, wearing a bootscoon jacket and a cowboy hat. And like I go to these rodeos and like I'd go to Roma in the middle of Queensland and these people would be like, something's wrong with your daughter. And he's like, yeah, it's called multiculturalism. And that's the environment I grew up in, and me and him, like, we connect over country music.
I love that. I love country music.
So yeah, you go do that. I will listen to that twang.
Please, you like, and that's what I mean. Like on this like secret ballady album, there's like one song called 3 Miles, and it's like fully just like country infused.
I will walk 3 miles for you.
No, it's like. How's it go? Like, I got 3 more miles till I'm home.
That's nicer than
like,
that.
And it's
remix.
But I honestly think like my love of doing like I did the Afro beats track this year, and I did the acoustic track, and I did the Lies and Frauds, which was like a bit like dark and like hip hoppy and like this EP as well. Like, I think my love for like all different sorts of music. One, I think deep down inside, I'm like constantly forming a new identity. Like, I'm like, who am I? Who am I this time? What does Arig love? Like, where do I feel whole? What can I throw myself into? What does this feel like? What does this sound like? And I don't know whether, again, it's from my childhood, like not being able to actually have a solid identity, that I'm constantly like, ooh, like, what is this gonna feel like? Or what is this gonna look like? Even in the new promo material, I'm like, like, how far-fetched can I go? Like, how much freedom can I have with myself? So it's interesting. Songwriting is just a different world, really.
Before we get out of here, I've only got one more question for you both, and it's something that I'm really curious about too, because I love picking people's brains, especially songwriters, because I just like nerd out on it. You know, I'll start with you, Arig. What's a piece of advice that you could give to a young, up and coming or aspiring songwriter that you wish you heard for yourself when you were young?
Oh, this is deep.
And we pray.
Yeah, literally. I'm just like, how deep do I want to take this?
Which Arig is coming to this question?
Yeah.
I think if someone, I didn't start making music until my mid-20s.
Hey, yeah, I wasn't, like, I was a bit earlier than that, but like, Yeah, I didn't do music at all until I was 20. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
until I was like 24. No, I lie. Listen, I dabbled in some stuff when early 20s, but then I decided to like take it seriously, 24-ish. I'm 28, by the way. I'm just going to say it. But yeah, 25 was when I was like, right, I'm going to do this. And then I released the Attrition EP. But if somebody could have pulled me, no, a lot of people did. I was just too dense to listen. I had my own issues. But it's like, learn to support yourself. Learn to support your dream. And believe in your dream. And literally trust. Just trust in your creativity. Trust in it. Learn yourself. Learn yourself is one thing that I would just... If someone said to me, learn yourself, don't give away your emotional sovereignty as an adult, I reckon that would have saved me a couple of years of pain and I would have been able to get a lot of things done. So learn yourself. Learn your emotional... Become emotionally intelligent and learn to trust yourself. Learn to trust your intuition. I say that 100%. Learn yourself, trust your intuition, become emotionally intelligent, especially if you have had trauma and your emotional sovereignty is everything. Becoming an emotional sovereign adult will save you from a lot of things.
Dina, what advice
And
could
we
you
pray.
give?
Yeah. Seek God.
I would say probably two things. Don't let other people give you your limitations. I got caught in that trap fully. Like I worked in the industry first because I fell into the passion of music, but I let people tell me that I'm not talented enough.
Yeah.
I'm obviously still working towards a goal of a sustainable career, but for years I held myself back and let other people hold myself back because they specifically told me that I would never make it as a musician and I would never make it as an artist.
Yeah.
And that I wasn't talented enough so that I should work behind the scenes. But the truth is, yes, there is talent, but there's also talent when you have worked on it. Like you're not everyone is just born with this like gift. There is also beauty in resilience and fortitude and harnessing and growing and just continuously working on your craftsmanship, and that takes time, and
Dedication.
you can get there, but you can't get there if you put limitations on yourself. So that's my first one. And then the second one following on from that, just remember that everything is always perception. And so you always see what looks like something glorious, something easy, something quick. But the truth is there's been a lot of hard work behind the things that you see that is presented as, oh, this is just something I threw together, kind of, or like, oh yeah, I just blinked this and a song came out of my eyes when I was crying in the shower. Like, so celebrate your baby steps and your baby wins, because that is all leading to the ultimate goal you're going for, which is achievable because you haven't set limitations on yourself. So I'm still way behind it. Like, I'm not saying this as like, I got there, you can get there too. Like, I'm still on that journey, but I can, because I've done those tiny little baby steps and I've done those tiny baby wins and I've tore down those limitations. I'm now in like a middle place where I can actually look behind and go like, holy crap, I did that. I'm here. Like, I'm playing the Tivoli next weekend, and that was my dream for like 7 years or something. And yeah, I'm doing it even though it's COVID capacity, so it's smaller, so it's doable for me, but I'm still playing the Tivoli, and it's like, yes, I got there. Like, so there's been heaps of those little wins, and it makes me realize that I'm getting closer and I've actually achieved something. And I think we can sometimes be caught up in being like, but I haven't done this over here, but you actually have done all of this to get to there soon. So I don't know, does that help?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so it's just, I think we get caught up because we sort of set our expectations by what we see from other people who are miles ahead of us.
Yeah.
So it's important to sort of also look inwards and just pat yourself on the back of yourself. It's like, man, good for you.
Yeah.
You did that. You
Also,
know?
those
Yeah.
expectations are because, like, if I achieve this, then people will stop having shame on me, or like people will think that I am
like-
actually secure and stable and successful.
Yeah,
But,
people
you know.
set like people put their self-worth in. It's like, you know, people it's a long climb to the top,
Yeah.
but you don't stay there forever. So it's like and that's why I say, like, learn yourself and become emotionally intelligent so that you can maintain your sense of self-worth no matter where you're at. Because if you hit a lull, you need to maintain a sense of self-worth and have yourself together, because life is like goes like this. Also, with the whole thing about the steps, I don't know if you guys know Jordan Peterson.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He said something really interesting, which was like, set the bar low, but set the bar every day.
He also says compare yourself to who you were yesterday
Yeah.
than who someone else is today, which is a great one.
Yeah.
Because it's like just race against yourself.
Yeah.
You know, that's good. Is this how we all hold our mics at gigs?
That's how, when I rap, that's how I hold it.
Yeah, I feel like
Like when I'm
I'm.
on-
Yeah,
I'm
you're
doing
like-
your genre. right
I
now.
feel like
You are
I was
Jaguar
like,
Jonze,
she's
aren't
about
So
to
I
bust
do
out.
this because I'm really clumsy, and this is like my teeth stopper. Like,
Do you, when you're singing, do you hit your teeth on the mic?
well, I hit my teeth on my finger.
I
yeah.
do that from time to time. I'm like, oh shit.
Do you ever get
Yeah, I do.
electrocuted?
Yes,
on
all
lip?
the
Yeah,
time on
yeah,
my lips
yeah.
and stuff. I
Yeah, so
always thought it was just me.
I put my
No,
finger
no,
like that to go.
Yeah,
so
sometimes I
space-
do this like a chin stopper, like that's the limit, Dina. Stop there. But I feel like I'm like emceeing, like I'm like, yo, chin stopper, what's up?
Sometimes I get so into it and I end up like eating the microphone. I'm like, oh shit, sorry, my bad.
Yeah, and then you like jar yourself and you act cool, like
yeah.
I meant that. Totally meant
yeah, I
that.
was
Part of
meant
the
to
act.
do that.
Yeah, you're like, whoops.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jaguar Jonze and Arig the One, for coming
Thank
in
you.
to
Thank you,
the
Chong Ali.
APRA
Thank you.
AMCOS Songwriter Speaks
you so
Brisbane
much.
edition. And we look forward to seeing you guys on the other episodes in the other states. And big shout out to Kelly and Andrew for having us on today.
Thank you, APRA AMCOS, for having us.
Peace.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.